Hello friends, this is Caxt here to talk to you about the Tokyo Game Show 2023. I just got back from this and now I wanted to put together some of the footage that I took while I was there, talk to you about my experiences, some of the good, some of the not so good, and give you guys a chance to experience it for yourself, since I know traveling across the 7 seas to get over here is quite the journey, let's say. So Tokyo Game Show is held every year at a convention center called Makuhari Messe, which, despite the name being Tokyo Game Show, I don't think is actually technically in Tokyo. It's in Chiba, which is just east-southeast from Tokyo proper, interestingly on the same train line as Tokyo Disneyland. So Tokyo Game Show is split up across 4 different days. The first 2 days are called their business days, which are for industry people only, which pull in about 30 to 40,000 people a day, which is a lot of people. And then the next 2 days are the public days that just about anybody can go to. I think tickets are 2,300 yen, or about $20 US. And on those days, about 100,000 people show up. So this place gets really crowded. You'll see in some of these clips there are a lot more people than others. If I'm swaddling my way through a sea of human bodies, that's going to be one of the public days. So if you do decide to come on a public day, just prepare yourself for the smell. One interesting thing to note is that you'll see all these Bethesda ads out here. There was no Bethesda presence at the show, so what's going on there, Bethesda? You pay for all the ads and then you don't show up? I don't know what's going on there. That's kind of weird. If somebody knows what happened to Bethesda at this conference, let me know down in the comments below. One of the things that makes Tokyo Game Show 2023 so special is that it's my first gaming convention I'm attending, not just as a fan, but as an exhibitor. In the past, I've been to GDC and E3, rest in peace, but this is my first chance that I've had to participate as a developer. For those of you watching who don't know, my company, Imaginary Game Studios, is responsible for the development of Meticulous, a gamified health companion, now available on Steam. If you haven't already, you should totally go check that out. So participation in Tokyo Game Show is split up into 3 different categories. There's the obvious category for people who host a physical booth at the event, which I did not do this year. But then there's 2 other ways that you can participate. One is by hosting an online exhibit, which means that you're included in any online coverage of the game. Most notably, you're included in the Steam event. The third way that you can participate in Tokyo Game Show is by hosting a booth in the metaverse through Tokyo Game Show VR, or tgsvr, which is pretty cool. For, I think, a week or 2 after the event has closed, so if you're watching this video when it's new, you should totally go check this out. There's an app either available for your phone, or you can download it for free on your computer, or if you have a VR headset, you can download it on that too. It's Tokyo Game Show VR, and you can actually walk around a virtual space where a lot of the companies that have participated in the physical event also have a virtual booth that you can go check out too. Conventions and events like Tokyo Game Show are more important now than ever before, especially for smaller studios. There are a lot of challenges associated with game development, but the biggest obstacle has nothing to do with actually making your game at all. It's the question of how are you going to get your game seen? Once upon a time, making a fun, well-made game may have been enough to guarantee some level of success for your company, but those times are sadly long gone. These days, people discover new games online through various social media outlets, each of which has their own discovery algorithms that you're beholden to. Gaming conventions are one of the few ways for a studio to push back against those algorithms and guarantee that your game will get some eyes on it. That's why I wish that I could come on here and tell you about how participating in Tokyo Game Show was all sunshine and roses. But that's sadly just not the case. First off, very few members of the on-site staff speak English, which, fair enough, we're venturing to their territory, we play by their rules. I can understand that, but it is something to be aware of if you want to attend the event in person. But really, the nightmare began long before the event did. I was told there would be an exhibitor briefing in early July, 2.5 months ahead of the event itself, but July came and went with no mention of this briefing ever having happened. Instead, I was offered a 223-page exhibitor's manual with extensive details of everything I needed to know about being an exhibitor for Tokyo Game Show. When you're an indie game developer, you're living a pretty busy life, and the last thing you want is 223 pages of documentation to read through. In addition to that, you'll be bombarded with emails and notifications through their online portal about additional documentation that needs to be completed on a near daily basis throughout the month leading up to the event. The cost of the time it took to sort through everything relative to the payout of what I was given in return was unreasonable, to put it politely. I can't imagine that other gaming conventions are managed in this way, but I guess I'll let you know in my next convention video. The best part about the exhibitor manual is that it lists certain special services offered to the exhibitors, like opportunities for how to distribute press materials to media outlets at the event. Sounds great, right? Well, it would be, except none of the on-site staff were aware of these services. So I spend the time getting materials written, designed, translated, printed, and then transported to the event, only for the staff to look at me like I'm a crazy person for bringing these materials with me. They've never heard of any press room, and the location marked on the map in the manual doesn't open for another 2 hours later than what the manual describes. The most egregious issue is that I wasn't even afforded an exhibitor badge for the event, so none of the staff will consider you an exhibitor at all, making accessing exhibitor features impossible in the first place. As an example, the second business day had an international and indie night after-party for exhibitors, but I was denied entry because they wouldn't give me an exhibitor badge. There's a certain level of foolishness you feel when you're an international independent game developer paying for multiple exhibits at an event and you're denied entry to the International Indie Exhibitor Night. I'll go ahead, let's just call it mythically foolish. At one point, I wanted to ask a question to a member of the staff behind a help desk. It was early morning before the start of the event, so the event hall was still mostly empty, and no one was in line for this help desk. However, I was stopped and told that I needed to approach the help desk from a different direction. So instead of walking 20 steps forward to speak to someone on the other side of a small plastic fence, I was forced to walk 10 minutes down the length of the venue and back so that I could approach the help desk properly. Any one of these things might have been a smaller issue on their own, but after spending thousands of dollars to support Tokyo Game Show and traveling to be a part of this event, all of this together just left a very bad taste in my mouth. Anyways, sorry for the rant. Thanks for letting me get that off my chest. There's more details that I could have gone into, but I think you kind of get the gist of it. And besides, we're here to talk about gaming conventions and how awesome video games are, so why don't we get to some of the fun part? Video game conventions have a few interesting little tidbits that I've noticed. One, you get tons and tons of VR stuff just because it shows really well on a show floor, despite the fact that as far as I can tell, it hasn't really taken off any more than when they first started showing it at these events, 8-9 years ago, however long that was. You can go back, watch my E3 from 2015 video on this YouTube channel. You also get some 360 treadmills, which, again, at the time, that seemed like the coolest thing I've ever heard of, especially now, as somebody who's developed a personal health companion, a gamified health companion. The idea of being able to play video games by walking on a treadmill, like, heck yeah, sign me up. but they've been around now for near a decade, if not longer. And what do we got? We got nothing new going on there. Uh, well, this is interesting. One of the things that you see a lot of at Tokyo Game Show are these little personal setups. So this booth that we're looking at right now is from Nitori, which is just like a regular uh, Japanese furniture store. I don't know. I guess it's like a Walmart, maybe? I don't know. All the Nitori fans out there are going to be really mad at me for saying that. It's like cheap, really small furniture. Smaller than you would ever see in an American furniture store, at least. But yeah, they got these little gaming things set up just to have a little bedroom area for the gamers out there. And they've got gaming apartments, where apartments in Japan, the walls are really thin, so they've got these special apartments with really thick walls, so you can yell and shout at your esport events all you want. They got these cool spaceship chairs that you can sit in, recliners with curved monitors that are like, I don't even know, it's like the bed and breakfast version of a gaming office chair. Really, really cool, really comfortable stuff. Pretty expensive, but you know, what do you expect for living a life of luxury such as that? One thing you might have noticed is they got a blockchain booth. NFTs, they're showing up at gaming events. I mean, kind of gross. I don't, you know, I don't feel super great about it. But it's a part of our gross cyberpunk future that I don't think it's going to go anywhere anytime soon. Got a lot in terms of schools. I myself went to game design school, got my master's in technical design and production and all that. So it's cool to see what some of the Japanese college programs are putting together. You might have noticed one where you pick up a head and you have to move a head around in the real world to attach facial features to the head in a video game. Cute, fun little stuff like that. One interesting thing to note is that high school is not actually required in Japan. So just like walking around on the streets downtown Ikebukuro, I've noticed advertisements for gaming high schools, for esports high schools. If you really want to start your esports gaming legacy that early on in your education life, I mean, I can't imagine discarding all pretense of academia to go play video games full time as early as 9th grade, but you know, hey, to each their own. More power to you. And then we've got some of these bigger booths here. So like you're gonna see the Square Enix booth. They got these gigantic TV projector screens set up. They've got obviously people dressed up in costumes. They've got actual like life-size dolls, I guess, models of some of the characters. They've got the cloud bike. Here you've got Dragon's Dogma, gigantic life-size dragon. Very cool stuff that they put out for some of these bigger booths. Surprised to see The Division and Rainbow Six Siege being advertised here. That's, again, I mean, those were games that were being announced at E3 2015. So one of the things that's really been made apparent by my trip to Tokyo Game Show is the games industry is really following suit with the movie industry in terms of remakes, reboots, remasters, sequels. I couldn't name a single new video game that was announced in all of Tokyo Game Show 2023. You've got all these sequels, like we're looking at another game in the Atelier series. Just behind this, there was a booth for Ys. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's literally the letter Y-S. Nordics, I guess, is the entry number. I don't know. I've never played a Ys game before. I don't know how you say it, but it's a franchise that's much more popular over in Japan than it's ever been in the States. But this was one of the most popular booths there. Pretty much everybody at the event was carrying a bag that was either Persona branded or Ys branded. I don't know why it hasn't caught over in the States. So if we've got any Ys fans out there, let me know down in the comments what kind of game Wise is, and why maybe it's only popular in the East. We do have a little section here. Throughout the entire event, you've got areas dedicated to not just one indie game, but an assortment of indie games. You know, it seems to me like back in the day, these gaming conventions, publishers had more confidence in the titles that they were showing off at the event. Like, they would have 1 or 2 or maybe 3 new upcoming titles that would be like the big thing, like this is what our show floor is going to be about this year. But that certainly is not the case anymore, and I think part of that has to do with, one, the number of games being made is just so much higher than what it once was. Number 2, the number of these AA middlemen publishers has really exploded in recent years. You know, we have the word indie. That's basically just kind of become a marketing buzzword at this point, because the companies making these so-called indie titles have relatively large team sizes behind them, relatively large budgets behind them, so that you've got a game like Overcooked that sure is made by a small team, made by a few guys, and that's awesome, that's great. I love me some Overcooked, but you don't know what the name of the developer of Overcooked is. I don't even know what the name of the developer of Overcooked is now that I'm thinking about it, but you know what name I do know is Team 17, the publisher, because Team 17 is a big part of the brand name behind games like Overcooked. Like, when you look at Overcooked, you know it's a Team 17 game. That's the marketing stamp of approval that you know that there's a certain quality bar that the game you're looking at is going to meet. And so when you come to an event like this, there is going to be the Team 17 booth. I don't know what games were at the Team 17 booth, because the games were overshadowed by these AA publisher brands. I think like Playism was another name that I kept seeing over and over again throughout the show floor. And when you go into these booths, it's kind of like these companies are just shotgunning you with 9, 10 different games of, we don't know which one of these is going to stick, so just look at them all and see which one catches your eye. And on the one hand, you know, I think it's great, because it means that there's more developers out there getting their chance to shine. They're getting their time under the sun, and that's awesome. Don't get me wrong. I love it. But at the same time, it kind of makes walking through these events just turn into game soup, where it's just, when you look at all of these booths, you just recognize, okay, this game looks like that game, and this game looks like that game, and oh, and I played this before because I played that, and I played this before because I played that. And it kind of contributes to like a more messy experience and a more forgettable experience when you're walking across the show floor. This area that we're looking at right now is called the Selected Indie 80, which again, I think it's great that Tokyo Game Show is looking to support indie games, because the idea is that they picked 80 different studios to give free floor space. So everybody here in this area got their booth for free, and that's awesome. And what gaming convention would be complete without merchandise? Lots and lots of merchandise, small to large, left to right. You got merch for all kinds of video games you could ever dream of. It's really surprising to me to see what is popular in the merch space versus the typical gaming convention floor space. On the one hand, brand loyalty is just as apparent here as it is anywhere else. You've got merchandise for games like Crazy Taxi. All the advertisement for Sonic is based around the character and not based around the new title. But then you'll see here you've got tons and tons of indie game merch put side by side, or in some cases ahead of the big AAA stuff. You've got Cuphead next to The Witcher. You've got Deltarune and Undertale listed above Elden Ring. It's kind of mind-blowing. The one disappointing component is that, I mean, a lot of the merch here just seems pretty run-of-the-mill stuff that you'd see on a discount rack at a GameStop, you know? Like, it's not super impressive. But they do have some pretty cool stuff, like you've seen here with the Final Fantasy goods. And we got, you want to deck your baby out in a little slime outfit. Like, all right, that's something. They did have a Hideo Kojima booth. They got a Persona outfit, which is pretty cool to see. I think maybe one of the coolest booths here that I think will come up here in a second is a Torch brand of like rings and necklaces from Elden Ring and Dark Souls. That's pretty cool to see some of those in-game items actually realized in the real world. That's kind of more the cool, unique stuff that I would hope to see at an event like this. Something maybe a little bit more exciting than we'd see at a typical Target. They did have some pretty cool peripherals here, lots of different color schemes. They got special keycaps for your keyboard. Some of these keycaps even have anime characters on them. I don't know how you're supposed to read that or know what they represent or who these anime characters are supposed to be, but pretty cool, pretty different, you know, pretty unique. Of course, they got all different keyboards of different shapes and sizes. They even got, look at this, they got duck face keycaps. I might be a little uncomfortable for your fingers, but you know, hey, you do you, gamers. Here's the actual physical booth for the VR booth. So some people that went to this game show were made aware of what Tokyo Game Show VR was all about. And again, this is available on phones, on your computer, and for VR headsets. So you can totally play Tokyo Game Show VR for yourself. There's even little quests you can do. Go look for the Imaginary Game Studios booth. It's over there in Flint Peaks. Check it out. Oh, this was pretty cool. They have haptic vests. I haven't actually played around with one of these yet myself, but it seems like a pretty cool thing. If you're not familiar with haptic vests, this is where when you get shot in the game, there are little vibration sensors in different locations on the vest to make you actually feel like you're getting shot in real life. I mean, minus the horrible mind-numbing pain, which I think is probably a bonus. Some of the peripherals they have here are not actually really for the typical consumer, like you just saw there. They have an actual pilot seat for training actual jet fighter pilots. This is kind of cool. They have a VR motion seat, so obviously, you know, everybody's a fan of the VR stuff, of 3D stuff, but now we're starting to get into 4D territory where your actual chair moves around in response to the game experience. Like, you know, out there, somewhere out there is some horribly awesome full dive experience where you've got the haptic vest, you've got the full motion seat, or you're in a 360 treadmill. That's pretty cool. They've actually got a working hologram. I think those are fan blades that have lights projected onto them to make it look like the image is floating in space. Cool little, cute little thing. They all say holograms are the one part in sci-fi that we're never going to get. But there you go. That's Tokyo Game Show VR 2023. Thanks so much, everybody, for stopping by the video. And if you haven't already, make sure you hop down in the Imaginary Game Studios Discord server, link in the description down below, to stay up to date with the latest and greatest game dev stuff I'm working on and any future conventions that I will be attending. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day, and until next time, this is Caxt, signing off.